Welcome to Your Family Bank podcast. It's good to be with you today. Doing stuff a little bit differently. We've got in-office guest today, and it is none other than my lovely wife, Karli. And we're going to talk a little bit more about our family and some of the things that we do with teaching our kids, because we've got a lot of requests about things that we are doing, and I figured I'd bring her in, let her verify what I've been talking about this whole time. So Karli, thank you for coming. I know
you're welcome.
You didn't have much choice.
You promised to feed me after. That's really why I'm here.
So why don't you give a little bit of background about yourself?
Man, okay. Where do we start? I was born in 1988.
No.
Just kidding.
I don't need to go that far back.
So I guess maybe the pertinent information to me, why I really value work ethic and being able to be self-sufficient, self-reliable, really feel these are good values to instill in our children, is because I came from just like a middle class working family, and I really didn't see great financial habits exhibited by my parents, and they'd be okay with me saying that because they know that it's true. And I wasn't really taught how to manage money. I wasn't really taught how to make it. I was taught, to work hard, to show up to work, to always do your best when you're at work, and to find ways to earn money. But I wasn't really taught anything more than that. So I ended up graduating high school, put myself through college. I basically had a job ever since I was probably 16 years old and needed to pay for gas for my car and wanted to get places. And then once Blake and I met and got married, I ended up putting him through law school and finishing my own degree while continuing to work and have our first child. And I feel like I've just always been the pinch hitter for our family. Anytime that there's been, we move to the next stage in life and we find ourselves in a situation where we can't really afford our kind of set bills. And the next chapter, I've found a way to make up that difference for our family, or found a way in our earlier years when we were broke to make the Christmas money, or just found ways to create income while still being a mom. And for a while that actually looked like being a leader in a social selling company. I was one of the top leaders at an MLM and did some great things to make money for our family from home, and led a big team. And I like to joke that I'm now in my trophy wife era, and Blake has taken over financially entirely now. But I feel like I'm kind of transitioning to helping our kids find ways to make their own money and manage their money now.
Yeah, well, that's a great background. Before we go deeper into that, something unique most people would not know about you.
Something unique about me. Do I want to embarrass you at all by sharing what's unique about me? Or something that is very unique about me is I am very particular with socks. And I just barely broke this habit a couple years ago of always having the same left sock and right sock all the time. And I've finally forced myself to get away from that little bit of OCD.
Yeah, I could never fold her socks because I would never put the right sock and left sock. I couldn't tell the difference, but she could. So
yeah,
they weren't marked, by the way. It was, she could feel the difference.
I could feel the difference, and it would ruin my day. Sensory overload, anyway.
Okay, really unique. But thank you for being that willing to share. Let's go back to childhood habits. Was there a specific instance in your upbringing that kind of shaped how you thought about money, whether for good or for bad? I know you said you didn't have great financial habits, but maybe you could share a story of both. But was there a particular one that kind of said like, hey, this is what I want to do, or I need to find a different route?
Okay, so one very money-oriented memory that I do have. My dad was a small business owner, and my mom was a nurse, and because my dad owned his own business and it was kind of like, construction, new housing related, it was very like feast or famine for us. And during the seasons of feast, obviously, there wasn't a lot of budgeting or talk about budgeting or different things. But then those seasons of famine would come. I just mirrored you. Mm-hmm. Those seasons of famine would come, and they would feel almost foreign because we'd be we would have previously had long seasons of more feast. And this one season came, and I think it was just kind of winter, just kind of like a normal down season for my dad and his business. I don't remember, the complexities of why this one was especially more challenging. Maybe my parents just hadn't prepared well enough for the winter. But I do remember going to the grocery store with my mom, and for the first time in my entire life, my mom like stopped and like measured and weighed produce, like to see how much we were spending. And she was keeping track of how much we were spending in the store as we went through the store. And that's the only time that I remember my mom being aware of the money we were spending on groceries. And I was like, what are you doing? I was probably like 8 years old. And she's like, well, we don't have a lot of extra money right now, and I have to make sure I don't spend more than X amount of dollars today. And I was like, and I actually remember telling her, I was like, because I don't know, I liked math. And so she would say, okay, we've got 2 pounds of this. How much is that? And I would do the math in my head. I was like, this is fun. And anyway, but so I was like, being poor is fun. You get to do math in the grocery store. And but that I do remember that. And now as an adult, as I look back on that, that's I don't ever want to like be so restricted by our finances that I can't just buy the groceries that I need without having to weigh them. Another, I guess, personal life for me, being a young adult and trying to make it financially and being on my own. Right after, I guess, in the middle of college, I was leaving for a mission to do missionary work for our church, and you have to pay off your debt before you go. I had just paid off my school debt and was working 2 jobs trying to make sure I had no debt so that I could go on my mission. And I remember driving from one job to another, and my car was running on fumes. And I pulled into this gas station, and I was so broke at this point that I think I literally put like $5 of gas in my car, and that's all I could afford. And so later in life, when Blake and I finally got to the position where I stopped looking at gas prices and I stopped caring about how much gas was going to cost me to put in my car, that felt like the biggest blessing and the biggest like financial freedom, was just not worrying about gas prices or filling up my car. And I'm grateful for those instances in my life, because it makes me really appreciate truly how abundant our life can be with something as simple as not worrying about gas and groceries.
Yeah, a lot of interesting things that we learn along the way.
We've had a lot of learning.
The things that stick out. If you don't mind sharing, I know you have a story about your family as you were in college and how that affected the way you see finances and your view. Do you mind sharing that story?
I'm going to get a little bit sad. When I was in college, I was probably a sophomore. It was 2008. So like the recession hit. Like I had mentioned earlier, my dad's business was very kind of new construction, home remodel oriented. He had like a door window cabinet business. And long story short, during that sophomore year of college for me, my parents lost everything. And they had just leveraged themselves into like a newer home and taken on some things that they were hoping were going to grow their assets and prepare them for retirement. And it was just really horrible timing for them. And they ended up just really going under. The business went under. They ended up losing both homes that they, the one that I had grown up in my whole life, and then the one that they had just kind of moved up into. And anyway, so they lost it all. My mom was also in the throes of a really bad addiction and wasn't really doing her part to sustain the family. And that's another podcast for a different host. But ultimately, they lost it all. And while I was in college, they ended up moving from my hometown in Oregon to Utah, and just moving out of necessity to try and find work, try and find more affordable cost of living. And it was a really hard season. That was, right as I mentioned, me leaving for a mission, that was around that same time. So my parents didn't have, $20 to give me to put in my gas tank. They they didn't have the money to send me on a mission or to pay off my school debts that I was leaving behind. So it was really on my own, and they had a really, really hard season. And it was really hard to see them, build for 20 years while I was at home and then lose it all overnight. And yeah, it's been really, really heartbreaking to witness that. And they really haven't recovered from that. And that's definitely something that I don't ever want to have to experience with Blake. And I surely don't want our children to ever have to experience that with us or be in the position where we are now, being very aware that we will probably have to support my parents and take care of them. I don't want that to be a burden that my children get from us.
Yeah, so I always try and, what are the lessons learned from those experiences? That's what when I hear the stories from our podcast guests, it's, okay, what am I hearing lesson-wise in there? And I think quite a few positives from that is, obviously preparing for the future, don't over leverage, make sure there's reserves in there. And then, timing too, we have to be careful with that. Sometimes that's something we can't avoid. Any other positive lessons you would take from that, things that have helped you from that experience?
I guess one positive lesson that I glean from all of it is that, we have the opportunity to just do better than our parents did and to grow, learn from the things they did well and the things they did poorly. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, and, your legacy and your continued generations moving forward. And I mean, my parents did better than their parents did, and they really tried, and they did the best they could, and they improved upon what they were given and what they were taught from their parents. And we get the opportunity to do the same now, and our boys will teach their kids better than we have taught them.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think back through my parents and grandparents, and if you take what they've taught you, you've taken those lessons, and then that's what you should be doing. That's the goal. That's what every parent's goal is that your kids do better than you do. And so hopefully you can take that. All right. So now that people know kind of the background of where you're at, they've heard my story about purchasing the law firm and kind of my upbringing. So now let's talk about where we go with teaching our kids and the things that we do. Probably the one that we fight about the most, about whether
we pay for college or not.
Yeah, about whether the kids, how much we help out the kids. The biggest one is, how much are we going to help them with college? As you heard Karli say, she had to pay 100% her own way with everything. I was a lot more fortunate. My parents, they could have paid for everything. They paid for all of my tuition, and then I just paid for everything else. We each have our own view of what that looks like. I think our kids should do, obviously pay for some of it, and she wants them to work and struggle like she did, because that built her to who she was. But what's our compromise? What have we come up with?
What have we come up with? I think our compromise is helping them fund their way through college now, and making it so that when they do go to college, they have money set aside that they can pay their own way or a portion of their own way, but they don't have to do all of the work while they're 18 to 22 and going to school full time and trying to have a social life and date and where they can do the work now so that they're set up to maybe have a part-time job in college and not work 2 jobs like I did.
Yeah, because I do think social life in college and being able to have that freedom, and you do better in school when you're not just so tired and focused, like, oh, I've got to get up and go to school and then immediately go to work and work until late and then go to bed. Or if I want to go on a date, I'm definitely sacrificing sleep and those things. Not that most college kids sleep very much, but
but you need it.
It gives the opportunity for that. And so that's one of those unique conversations where we wanted to combine the two things that we felt were important, but also still make sure that the kids had a work ethic. So what are they doing now? They have a caramel apple business, and they set aside some of their funds from that. One of our sons mows lawns. stuff comes from that. They clean my office building. They don't ever see the money, but that goes into their college savings account as well. So it's things that they're doing along the way. So it will, and obviously, we're probably overpaying them for their services in those areas. But at least there's some work ethic tied to it, and it's front loading that work. But they will still have to have a job in college to pay for the fun stuff and their apartment, and or at least part of it. So that's the kind of stuff that that we've had the experience of, and that's what we would encourage you to do is find what works well for your family. It's not going to be the same. You may not be in a position to fund all of it, but how can you help them start now, setting stuff aside to make that happen?
Yeah, I would just interject and say you don't have to own your own business and have a building that your kids can come and clean to be able to put them, cut them a check at the end of the year that goes in their college account. Like literally one of the biggest things that we do, and the kids actually work for this, is like their caramel apple business. And it's a ton of work, but anyone can do something like that where it's, you make this special thing, something that your family can do that they're good at, that they can execute. And you do it a couple times a year, and you'll see your community, your friends, your family members rally around, supporting your children and their future goals and helping them put themselves in a position for success later on. And, you don't have to be a fancy business owner or have a lot of resources yourself to find something that you can do with your kids on a semi-regular basis to help them earn their own money. You don't have to be in a position of wealth or success to start doing those things. And I mean, we weren't for a very long time.
Yeah, and it's the earlier you start, the better. Compound effect really takes place if you can start that while they're younger. Just be disciplined a little bit here, a little bit there, and it goes a long way with making that happen. All right, let's pivot to legacy. What are your thoughts on legacy? What is it that you want your kids, grandkids, great grandkids to know about you that's most important? Because while the money is great and that's a big part of helping them be financial stewards and be successful in life, but I think it comes down to other things. So where does that fall with you?
My biggest thing, and this, there's a quote on our fridge. What does it say?
Never suppress a generous thought.
Yes, so that's like my life motto, and just the legacy that I want to leave for my posterity is to, one, always act on thoughts of generosity, but also the other part of that legacy is to live your life in a way and set yourself up in a way that you can act on generous thoughts and have the means to be generous when those feelings are given to you, to do good things for others. And that's one of the biggest goals for me in our personal financial lives, is to really build true wealth that can continue to grow and expand and bless so many lives, whether it's our full-time employees that are putting food on the table and paying their mortgage because we've provided or created businesses in which they're employed, down to seeing someone on the corner of the road with a street sign and being able to just reach in my purse and pull out a few dollars and hand it out the window without having a second thought.
So how do you plan on perpetuating that? How do you plan on making that something our kids do?
That's a great question, Blake. How do we do that? I think most things that are, I guess, legacy and family culture are learned. They're observed, they're seen repeatedly, and they're just learned by being part of the family unit. And something that's big for us is, more often than not in our prayers, we're asking for ways that we can look to serve others and who we can help and what we can do for them, and to have the means to do that. I guess, maybe we could be more intentional with direct conversations, but we do have conversations with them about, like, this is why we work hard and this is what we want to be able to do. But yeah, just maybe let our kids see more of the gifting or the things we're doing for people. But that is always a fine line, because you want to be able to be generous and charitable without being seen for it. And that's, yeah, it is kind of hard to create that and to do those things without it. Like, you want your kids to notice, but you don't want to draw attention to it either, because that's not why you're doing it.
Yeah, it's in how you live your life, I think is a big part of it. And, I'll definitely say that Karli is the one who leads in this area in our home. And, she's the first one to make baked goods for someone, volunteer to go over and help someone if they need, their house clean because there was a tragedy in their family, or babysit the kids and those kind of things. And it's, I try to point out when she's doing it because she doesn't want to draw attention. Look at me doing this. It's, hey, you notice your mom did this. And I think those are key parts of it as well. And it is always an interesting line to walk with teaching them about money, because then you'll have your kids come. We've had this where they want to sell their old clothes because they're trying to make money to pay for something or to put more in savings or whatever it is. And like, okay, I like that. But one, did you pay for those clothes? Some of them, yes, but most of them not. And then, well, you have nephews that could use those clothes. Let's donate them to them. Or, hey, we could to Goodwill, DI, those institutions. So I think it is really important to value and show those things as well. It's not just about the financial aspect. That's why I want to point out the legacy beyond the finances. And that's why we talk about that so much in this show.
Yep.
Any other thoughts or examples of either things for legacy or things we do with our kids to help them set them up for success in the future? I can think of, a few things that both of us always have pet peeves with other people's kids, maybe. And we don't have to go into that detail, but, what are the things that, top two things that you think are so important that most families aren't talking about, just because it's very difficult to enforce, or it takes a lot of work. A lot of times it's just we don't realize that when we do X, this is what the message they're sending.
I feel like this is a whole 17 questions in one. I feel like the thing that we try to do a good job of, and part of it is, we just know where we want to lead our kids financially. Others is, we're, especially now that we have a 13-year-old and he's a little more independent and he has more friends and he moves about freely. We're seeing examples of maybe some of his peers that are living maybe a different life with like the financial parenting than we are. So for us, we really are trying to teach our kids the value of $1, and both for being paid it, but also spending it out to people. And most recently, our oldest son really wanted an e-bike, and he's been begging for one forever. We kind of have this personal rule that like, we won't pay for things that are electric. We'll buy you a nice mountain bike. We'll buy you a push scooter. If you want a motor on it, you got to pay for it yourself because your legs are not broken. So that's our policy. He's really and he's bought the electric scooter before. He's bought secondhand like little e-bikes before. He wanted like this fancy e-bike, and we were not going to be buying it. And he's like, well, what about my birthday? And we're like, not a chance. So if you really want it, you're going to have to find a way to buy it yourself and to make it worthwhile. So he came to us and he proposed buying this e-bike with, paying for it himself, but also putting himself in the position where he would be able to take on more lawn mowing jobs, because he could pull a trailer behind it and take all the yard tools to other people's houses in the neighborhood, take more jobs, so I wouldn't have to transport him and the tools. And we're like, okay, that sounds great. And Blake and Brody worked up a contract, worked up some terms of like the loan and repayment and all of these things. And
with the key one being he still had to ride his mountain bike to school. He could not ride the electric bike to school.
Yeah, this isn't like your only mode of transportation now. This is for extenuating circumstances. And anyway, so he takes on this loan. He gets the bike. Before the bike comes, he's pumped. He's so excited. He can't wait for it to come. He's like checking the delivery every day. It finally comes on a Sunday. By Monday night, Blake was in Vegas. He was working at our other office, and Brody comes out of his bedroom at like 11 p.m. He's been in bed for an hour and a half. He's still awake and he's like, Mom, I need you. I go and lay with him. And this poor boy is feeling the crushing weight of consumer debt. He is like, Mom, I think I need to send the bike back. Like his payment is $71 a month. He's like, that's a lot of money. Like he's feeling this crippling weight, that stress, that true stress of debt looming over his head. And I'm there comforting him. We're talking through it. We're having all these conversations, and I'm secretly loving it, loving it, because I know that my kid is not going to go turn 18 and go buy a $20,000 car with a payment he can't afford, because he's experiencing this right now in the safety of our home with us being his debtors. And anyway, I'm proud to say that we have since worked through it. He's gotten a lot more jobs. He's feeling super capable of his ability to pay off this loan to Blake and I. He's really proud of the work he's putting in. But I just feel like these are the things that we're doing that I don't think a lot of other parents in his circle are doing, or maybe his age, his grade, this generation of parenting for us. That's going to make a big difference in his life. Is he's going to go into adulthood understanding what it feels like to have debt, understanding what it feels like to pay interest and to pay more for something than the original purchase price because you want it now instead of saving for it. And he's also going to know that he is able to make payments on something, and when the time matters, when he's staring down the barrel of making his first home purchase instead of renting forever, he's going to be confident in his ability to take on a loan. And that's just as valuable as avoiding, consumer debt is being confident in your ability to leverage debt when necessary.
Yeah. And figure it out. He kind of thought he had a plan before, and then it was, what, I want to get this done sooner. So it was now not just lawn work, but I'm going to go do some weeding. I'm going to go babysit. I'm going to do, so many other things, because he just wants that off his plate. And he's convinced he's going to get it done in 3 months instead of the year we gave him, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And you contrast that to someone who, I've seen this, already has an e-bike. They wreck it, and mom and dad give him a brand new one the next day. What does that teach that kid? Nothing. They just think, oh, okay, no matter what, I'm going to have this fancy new thing. It's not a big deal. They don't treat it with respect. They don't take care of it. And they definitely don't learn work ethic or responsibility or any of those things. So while would it have been much easier for me to just buy the bike for his birthday? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Taking the time to walk through and teach him about interest and showing him the payments and going through a contract with him and having him sign it and then doing the follow-up. And, the first 2 weeks he kind of was frozen and didn't do much. And then I would bug him, hey, have you talked to this person about a job? Have you talked to this person? No. Okay, well, before you go play with friends, you have to go and get yourself 3 jobs. Those are the things that they are not easy, but they are what set kids apart in whether they're going to be successful or not when they leave home. And so, yeah, I love that story. It's been very recent, and it's so cool to see those things come into play. And once again, it's way more than just the financial aspect of it.
Yeah,
it's about the confidence, about knowing that he can figure things out, and it will be okay.
Yeah, and the thing that goes along with that too, like I mentioned, was he's learning the value of $1, and he's asking us for less things that are frivolous. For example, this week, his friends were last week after school one day, they were all going to like Topgolf or something, and he kind of was like, "Oh, can I go?" I was like, "Is that what you want to spend your money on?" He didn't ask us for money, but I said, "Is that what you want to spend your money on?" And he said, "No, it's not worth it. It's not worth the money." And he didn't go, but he's also learning now. And this will apply in college when he goes to college and all his friends are spending $200 for a concert ticket. He'll say, it's not really worth the $200 for me to be entertained for 3 hours. And he's going to sit out those really frivolous things. But, I also just hope that hopefully they'll see from the way we live also that it is okay to spend money on true joys in life. You just have to be selective about it and not say yes to everything, because you eventually run out of ability to say yes if you're saying yes all the time.
Yeah. The quote that comes to mind is, you can do anything, you just can't do everything. And so being intentional with it. And that's a theme that we've had on this show multiple times before is, are you intentional with what you're doing, or is it being directed to you, or are you just letting, your kids kind of float through life? Yeah, I think we've covered a lot here in this episode. So I'll end with my usual last question. Best advice that you've ever gotten. Doesn't have to be financially related. It can be anything.
In life?
Yep.
I don't know. I'll share our favorite marriage advice, but I think it applies to all aspects of life. So our rule in our marriage is to not talk if either of us are hungry. Like, hunger is real, especially for me. And if you are hangry, just don't go out into the world. Just stay home, eat your little snacky snack, and then do whatever. Like today I came in and I hadn't eaten yet. I thought lunch was going to be before the podcast. And I'm like, do you have a snack? Like, I need a snack. So I stole a protein bar, fed myself, because I'm a much nicer person when I'm fueled. Eat your food. Eat your snacky snacks, and then go deal with the public at large.
Yeah, it's okay to pause, take a little snack break. Nothing wrong with that. That's what we put in every wedding book of people we visit.
Don't talk if you're hungry.
It's worked well for us.
Yeah.
There's been a few times we didn't follow it, and it did not work well.
We had to learn it.
Well, thank you for coming on and being my guest today.
That's ever.
And hopefully for our listeners, that validated some of the things that I've been talking about. You got to hear it from a separate source. And I will say the biggest key to success in any endeavor to teach your kids is you have to have your partner on board. You guys have to be aligned. You don't have to be necessarily 100% in agreement. As you've seen, we've had different thoughts on different things, but we are aligned with our purpose and unified in what we're trying to do. And so you have to find someone who's on that same page. So if you're not, then you need to spend the time figuring that out, how you can become aligned, because that's going to make all the difference more than anything else with your family. If you don't have the same message preached by both people, it's going to be a lot harder for your kids to learn that. And with that, we'll end our episode, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.